Welcome viewers to the Personal Injury Law Show. My name's Tony Carbone, personal injury lawyer with more than 25 years experience. Next to me I've got John Karantzis, accredited law specialist. How are you, John?
Good evening, Tony. Good evening, viewers.
In brief, accredited law specialist.
Accredited specialist by the Law Institute of Victoria, Tony, in personal injury law.
And also I've got Don Mafia.
Good evening, Tony.
Pronounced correctly, Don?
That's right, Tony.
And you specialise in transport accident legislation.
I do, Tony.
Tony is an expert in transport accident legislation.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome aboard, Don.
Been doing it for over 10 years, Tony.
And
Tony, today, before we get into transport accidents, what's in the news?
well, John, there's been a lot of stories about accidents on the road, and the one I want to raise is this child that was run over by a truck driven by his father. It reversed into him.
Shocking.
Now, it
case.
wouldn't take much to kill him, so I guess what it highlights is that we've got to be so cautious reversing in driveways, and also just in general, watch out for pedestrians. And when kids are involved, it makes it pretty tough.
Tony and Don, you know my views. I've said it before and I'll say it again. A car is a dangerous weapon.
It is, John. It
Please
is.
be careful on the road.
And John, to compound the problem here, this was a truck. So just any touch, especially on a child, you've got very little chance of survival. Do you know what I mean?
That's right.
And the damage it causes to the parents, to the family, to the wider community.
Yes, the father's got to live with himself, and you know, no doubt he's going to suffer for the rest of his life.
And unfortunately, it appears to be a very common occurrence, doesn't it?
It happens a lot.
It happens a lot.
In fact, I was speaking to someone from the Transport Accident Commission during the week, and they said to me, just highlight the fact, tell the pedestrians to be very, very careful, because they seem to be getting a lot more careless these days, stepping in front of cars and all sorts of things. Look, let's go to the first case on this transport accident update, and it's a case of Manly and Alexander. It's an infamous or famous decision in Western Australia. Don, can you tell us a bit about the facts?
Well, it involved it was a pedestrian, an inebriated pedestrian, drunk pedestrian who fell asleep in the middle of the road, and was with his friend who was on the side of the road. And the defendant in this matter was driving along, sees the friend on the side of the road, moves to the middle, refocuses on the road. So he lost his attention for a minute or two, whatever seconds.
We're driving in the middle of the night?
Driving middle of the night, country road.
Country road.
Not lit, as I understand it. But he's driving along, sees this pedestrian side of the road, moves to the middle without reducing speed.
So he's distracted?
Distracted, we don't know for how long. And then refocuses, sees an object on the road, and instead of slowing down or doing anything to avoid it, runs over the object, which happens to be the plaintiff who was asleep in the middle of the road.
Can you believe it, John? The plaintiff was that drunk, he fell asleep right in the middle of the road. And this
Sorry,
case
could I just ask a stupid question? Did he actually feel getting run over, Tony?
No. Look, it's sad because this particular plaintiff, he lost in the first instance, lost in the Court of Appeal.
What was his friend doing on the side of the road? And why was he leaving him there sleeping?
He was drunk too, John. But he was he was sensible enough not to be on the road.
That's right.
But there's a cruel twist to this case, because the fellow that was injured in the middle of the road...
Well, he must have sustained serious injuries.
He did. And the High Court gave him 30% of his damages. So, John, to put it in perspective, what's that mean?
The High Court has said to the plaintiff, you contributed 70% of the damage to yourself in this instance by your conduct, and therefore has reduced for contributory negligence his damages award by 70%. That's massive, Tony.
Which is pretty high. I think he was lucky to win. I think one of the key elements to this case was the fact that when the driver refocused to the middle of the road, he actually saw an object, but instead of slowing down, he just kept going at the normal speed.
And also he saw the friend on the side of the road, and instead of slowing down, he actually just kept speed and moved to the middle of the road. So I think those factors...
I think in this case the High Court has taken care of the injured.
Well, let me tell you what the cruel
victim.
twist in the case is, John. The plaintiff died shortly thereafter. A couple of years later, he was involved in another car accident, but this time he died. He wasn't so lucky.
You're kidding.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable.
Gee.
But look, can I just make a quick pronunciation of what the High Court said? They said the driver's got to take reasonable care and exercise that sort of care when driving a vehicle on the road, that they control the speed and direction of the vehicle in such a way that the driver may know what is happening in the vicinity of the vehicle in time to take reasonable steps to react to those events. That's a pronunciation made by the High Court.
So reasonable care by a driver is important.
And you need to know what's going on around you. You've got to be able to exercise and take steps.
Exercise judgment, and again, speed is a factor, isn't it, Tony?
That's exactly right.
The standard of care is a high one for a driver.
I think the plaintiff won in this case for the simple fact that The driver did see the object in the middle of the road.
Yes.
He didn't slow down to see if it was a human being or could have been anything for all we know. Could have been an animal. Could have been some...
Did it ever come out, what was he doing in the middle of the road?
Oh, Johnny was so drunk he didn't even know where he was. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's probably one of the reasons why he probably survived. He
Fair
got
enough.
a hit and didn't know what hit him. That woke him up at least. Don, can you give us the facts of this other case we're looking at, the pedestrian that got hit?
This is the matter of Gui versus Weston. Now, Gui, the plaintiff, was involved in an earlier accident at a near an intersection or at an intersection. I think
Yeah,
it might have
that's
been
correct.
Waverley Road and Springvale Road
In Melbourne.
in
Yes,
Melbourne.
That's correct.
So after this accident, he was going to cross the road to get some help. It was 9:30 at night, well-lit area. It was raining, dark. He went to cross and, in fact, started to cross the intersection on a green man.
He hesitated.
He got to the median point. The green man turned red, flashing red. So not full red, flashing red.
All right.
He hesitated, then started to cross, and I think got past one or two lanes, and it was hit by the defendant who moved, who was initially stationary at the traffic signals.
So the car driver is
moved off.
stationary at a red light.
That's correct.
At a red
It's
light.
turned green, and we've got the pedestrian still walking across the road.
That's correct.
And he's
Well-
started going to a run
At a
did,
fast
yeah,
pace.
at a fast pace.
At a fast pace.
Now, it's Waverley Road, is it?
Yes.
So quite a large road.
It is. It is.
Well, he's ended up crossing nearly the whole intersection or the road.
Yeah.
Before he got hit.
Before getting, and there was no other. Well, the respondent or the defendant actually said that there was a heavy traffic, but at the time that he pulled up at the traffic lights, he was the
John,
only car.
can I
at the
say
road.
this? His evidence is that he actually saw the car pick up speed. So what was he doing, playing chicken? It almost appears that way, John.
Well, you don't want to be stuck in the middle of the road, so you have to get off it.
That's right.
And he's
That's right.
proceeded to run off it, and he's been hit by the car.
Hit by the car.
Anyway.
In fact, crossed in front of the car and was only hit when it nearly passed the whole car. So he was
the
hit on
car's
the right
hit him-
hand of the car rather than the left
The
hand
car's
side
hit him
of
on the leg.
That's right.
The back of the
That's
leg
right.
or- yeah.
he had steel frames and screws placed in his leg. So it was a very, very nasty leg
Nasty,
injury.
Yeah, and then following this, he also sustained a psychiatric injury. He ended up some time in psychiatric hospital.
In the first instance, what happened to this bloke?
Well, I'll ask John, what do you think?
Well,
The
he's
it
been
before a jury?
granted leave to sue for damages against the car driver. He's issued county court proceedings in the County Court of Victoria, judge and a jury of six lay people in Victoria, and Tony. I think we have to go to a commercial.
We'll go to a sponsors break.
Sponsors break, yes.
He did lose, but we'll come back to the reasons why after the sponsors break. So viewers, please stay tuned. Don't go away.